Out in Havana, a physical confrontation at a community event led to gunshots, according to reports. The Gads County Sheriff's Department responded to a shooting during a community event at the old Havana Northside High School. One person was shot and another hit in the head with a bottle. Both victims were rushed to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital and obtained no life-threatening injuries. The suspect in the altercation is still at large and investigations are currently ongoing. In Quincy, almost 1,000 residents gathered as a historic building built a century ago was swallowed by flames. All that is left of the old William Stevens High School is rubble and ash from the fire that began Sunday morning, according to reports. The school was named after Dr. William Spencer Stevens, who was the first black man to open a medical practice in Quincy. Built in the 1920s using money from the Julius Rosenwald Foundation, which funded the construction of African American schools throughout the South. No one was injured in the fire. Keeping with your local headlines, 3 people are facing multiple drug charges after investigators say they found large amounts of cannabis at their home. Cannabis extract, and edibles were found at a home where 3 people were arrested and charged with several drug violations, including trafficking more than 25 pounds, selling marijuana within 1,000 feet of a worship space, and possession of narcotic equipment. According to court documents, all 3 live at the location of the drug bust. More details regarding the redevelopment of the Frenchtown district and downtown area have been released. During a meeting with the Community Redevelopment Agency, the budget and plans for new community were discussed. The CRA made a purchase and sale agreement with the North American properties for the Firestone and Bachman at Next properties. Retail stores, restaurants, and new housing units will be some of the many new features in this community improvement plan. Florida standardized testing is a topic of decision yet again in the Senate. Miami-Dade Senator Anna Terry Flores has proposed the Fewer, Better Test bill, suggesting that reducing the test bracket from 9 weeks to 3 will eliminate the loss of learning during the testing period. Meanwhile, Tallahassee Senator Bill Montford's proposal pushes the testing period back to the last month of the school year, providing students with a full academic year of learning instead of several months. Though Montford's proposal hasn't been scheduled for a hearing, Flores presented her argument to the committee. Participants showed up in record numbers for the JDRF One Walk for Type 1 Diabetes this past weekend. The mission of the walk was to raise awareness and funds to ensure that scientists continue research on this autoimmune disease. Following the march, participants gathered at Genesis Church for food, bounce houses, and a petting zoo and informational booths. FAMU pharmacy student Brittany Hanley shows some ways to regulate type 1 diabetes.
Realizing that there isn't a cure for it and it's not preventable, so you need to go to your doctor, you need to check your blood glucose levels regularly. Make sure you understand how to take your insulin and why you're actually taking your insulin so that you can make sure that you're following the correct steps to make sure your blood glucose doesn't get too low or too high. With type 1 diabetes, it's always good to carry around some type of lollipop or candy, anything of that nature, so that when you do take your insulin, if your blood glucose does go down too low, you can easily take out your little piece of candy and that'll bring your glucose levels back to normal.
This march raised more than $36,000, surpassing the organization's $34,000 goal. Sticking with your Florida headlines, there's a new push to fight the Zika virus. Florida Governor Rick Scott hosted a roundtable meeting with community leaders and health officials in Miami to discuss Zika preparedness. It comes ahead of Florida's rainy season when mosquitoes are most active. Officials say 29 Zika cases have been reported in Florida so far this year. The governor says while there are no longer Zika zones in Miami-Dade, people still need to watch for standing water, wear protective clothing, and use bug repellent. More than 200 people got Zika from mosquitoes in the continental U.S. last year. Most were in the Miami area. Supporters of President Donald Trump gathered in capital cities across the country to show their love for the president. Some of those supporters, as well as people protesting the president, were in Salem, Oregon. When some anti-Trump protesters heard there would be a pro-Trump rally at Oregon's Capitol, they decided to get there first. There was a third group wearing black and carrying Antichrist signs who crashed the pro-Trump rally several times. Some community members volunteered as security to try and keep the peace.
We want our images of love and inclusivity to outshine the oppressive symbols of the American flag and the Trump-Pence campaign flag.
Donald Trump threw open the windows in Washington, D.C. so we could see the corruption.
Oregon State Police said the crowd was between 200 and 300 people. Police say one person was arrested. Many companies are boycotting Google, which is costing the company billions. A growing list of brands has suspended their funds in advertising based on ads placed next to far-right extremist content on YouTube and Google's display ad network, according to a note from analysts. YouTube, which relies on big brands, would take an estimated $10.2 billion hit to its revenue for 2017. More than 250 brands have reportedly frozen all their campaigns with Google. Aside from the search feature, the tech company responded with an announcement including tougher ad policies.